5AA News.
This was a large storm. It covered a lot of areas.
So we need your help. We don't have water anymore. We don't have food.
Police have charged 2 men after a break-in at Waterloo Corner.
10 asylum seeker vessels have arrived since the federal election.
News as it happens.
In the interest of good government, I shouldn't be in the chamber and adopt the same procedure here, and that's what I've done.
Stay up to date.
He doesn't want to be just a carbon copy of Julia Gillard.
$13.95. Adelaide's 5AA. Interactive radio. Call 8223 0000. Peter Godfrey.
17 minutes past 5. Let's head across the ditch to New Zealand. Take a look at what's happening there. Selwyn Manning, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Peter.
How's things looking across the ditch?
Yeah, very good weather-wise. Things are pretty flash, actually. Nice kind of late spring feel to the air. Blue skies. Looks like this is up in the north of the North Island at the moment, so it looks very settled. Very
lovely, good. Lovely, good to hear. And we're, much the same. A little bit cloudy today. Although I did note, just in a Remember When column in the paper, today, 2003, it was 36 degrees in Adelaide.
Whoa! So you're not going to hit the... that's above blood temperatures,
exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, there would have been some blood boiling that day, I'm sure.
Oh,
yeah.
Very early in the season, that one.
Absolutely. Speaking of blood boiling, CHOGM coming up this weekend in Sri Lanka, and a lot of issues, concerns raised there, human rights issues and abuses in Sri Lanka. A couple of Prime Ministers boycotting it, the Canadian and Indian Prime Ministers. Calls for yours too, for John Key, but he's heading along?
Yes, that's right. New Zealand's Prime Minister, John Key. You know, we often speak about him, don't we, Peter?
We do. He's a popular fella.
Yes. I mean, he considerable criticism, just like you've said there, for agreeing to go to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. We call it CHOGM around the traps. So this year it's in Colombo in Sri Lanka. It's very much controversial because of the fact of allegations of human rights abuses, but serious ones as well, relating to the dominant Sri Lankan government and how it has been treating the Tamil populations in Sri Lanka. Now, this issue has been huge here in New Zealand, like I understand it has been in Australia too, where the New Zealand Green Party counterpart over here in New Zealand, Jan Logie, was detained just like your Australian politician as well, I think, by the Sri Lankan. Yes, by Sri Lankan authorities immediately prior to holding a press conference where their intention was to raise Sri Lankans' ongoing human rights abuses against the country's Tamil population. So that's the background to it. Now, here in New Zealand, the Prime Minister, John Key, said, well, he's going to be going anyway, et cetera, et cetera. The Green Party said he should stay away and boycott it and join the Prime Minister of India and the Prime Minister of Canada in citing the reasons, human rights reasons for not going. Now, Amnesty International got to underscore that it has raised this issue as well, and certainly the Labour Party here has raised it up as a big issue as well. Now, where the Labour Party here in New Zealand is, it is saying, OK, John Key wants to go, that's fine, he should sit down and he should argue that Sri Lanka not chair the CHOGM meetings, and the reasons being, and that would break convention, it would illustrate a dissatisfaction with what is going on in Sri Lanka. It would be a real kick, if you like, against Sri Lanka's handling of human rights issues, and certainly would be noted by the country. Now, John Key says, Peter, no, not going to do that. That's nonsense. There's been a convention, a tradition that goes back a long, long time. It wouldn't change anything, and so he's just going to go along. Now, the Labour Party, I did a bit of an interview with the leader of the Labour Party here on Tuesday night, and his big point on it was John Key, he's just going to go along, enjoy the canapes and the hors d'oeuvres and the conviviality and suck up the atmosphere of the event. He may, if we're lucky, talk trade in different areas, and certainly John Key has said that he's going to be going into other areas of Southeast Asia for a trade mission, but that's about as much as he would do. And John Key had issued a statement after all of this, and I'll just do a direct quote. He says, New Zealand is an active member of the Commonwealth and a strong supporter of the values that bind the 53 member states. And he went on in that vein. So there's nothing about human rights there, Peter.
So he hasn't even acknowledged that that's an issue?
certainly
raised.
not ahead of the meeting. He does go. He leaves for it tomorrow, Friday, and like you said in the intro, Peter, that the meeting is taking place over the weekend. And remember, it's once every 2 years is the CHOGM meeting. I know I've attended others myself, certainly the one up in Nigeria had human rights right at the heart of that particular meeting some years ago now, where Zimbabwe, with the issues around Zimbabwe and its handling of people inside its country, etc., like we all know, the problems that it's been suffering. It was on debate on whether or not it be excluded or suspended from the Commonwealth, and certainly Fiji has been raised in similar ways, less severe, obviously. But so it's an opportunity, really, in some ways, for human rights to be on an agenda at these big meetings.
Yeah. The interesting, I mean, the two prime ministers that have pulled out of it due to the human rights issues. In contrast, the British Prime Minister David Cameron, he's made a comment saying that it would be better to engage the island nation rather than isolate it, saying that, well, if we want to talk about human rights issues, we need to be there. So that seems a fairly, logical statement. Does the Labor Party or the Greens there, have an option on how to deal with the alleged abuses that are going on?
Well, because of the Greens, being right at the forefront of being the Green member being detained, they've got a more stronger aspect of boycotting. The NGO groups here in New Zealand, particularly Global Peace and Justice Auckland, they came out with a statement saying it must be boycotted and the issues of morality around human rights abuses should be highlighted. The Labor Party, I spoke on both of this, it comes down to two things, and the leader, David Cunliffe, said to me that the debate had been robust within their own caucus on those two issues. Should a person go, should they not? He said if he was Prime Minister, then he would reluctantly go if there was only if there was an opportunity to address the issues of human rights at the thing. And he says that's where you can get around the table if you're going to have the opportunity. He sees the opportunity there being a call for the Sri Lankan government not to, it may be hosting the meeting, but not to actually assume the chair, as the tradition would be a very, very big indication that the other countries at the Commonwealth were dissatisfied with where it was tracking on human rights issues. And if they failed to get them out of the chair, well, then the issue is still high. So that's where the Labor Party was. So it's not saying get around the table and kind of over your drink, you say, we're a bit upset with what's happening in your country and try and sort it out with you. It's more of a real staunch kind of thing inside the country and pushing the envelope in that way.
Yeah. It's been a topic of discussion here too, and one comment, a report I was reading last night made mention of our Foreign Minister who's attending, Julie Bishop, and she visited Sri Lanka earlier in the year as well, and quoted saying that she found no evidence of human rights abuses now, but conversely others have been there quite recently saying, well, there are fairly obvious. The UN, I think, said that surveillance and harassment seems to be getting worse there. So,
well, it's very difficult for a politician, isn't it? To go to a country and to actually observe human rights abuses. Yeah. Like if you, I've been on these things where media will go and accompany politicians to these things. It's a sanitised event. You're kept well away, or the people are kept well away from those politicians. So it is very difficult to ascertain that. What we have seen in the past is, like you're saying, the United Nations has been and raised concerns, but certainly since the Civil War in concluded in 1999, there was a noted and recorded systematic, not just victimisation, but murder of thousands and thousands of Tamil civilians, women, children, the elderly, etc. And that is what is getting the attention at the moment. That was from 1999 on. The problems around that too is that there are those who are alleging that crimes against humanity were committed there. So it may be that those in Sri Lanka at some time in the future, and it may be the near future, are facing International Criminal Court charges. So, there's all of this, and frankly, the Commonwealth has a long tradition, yes, and a very sound one on trying to advance human rights and standing of the country, and there's an opportunity here. Let's see what the politicians can do this weekend if they have the resolve to do so.
Yeah. On to another matter, again on security within New Zealand, although this one's perhaps not as concerning, or is it, of previous ones, a new head of the New Zealand Security Intelligence Service.
Yes, now the new appointment was announced only a couple of days ago, and it's Rebecca Kitteridge. We've spoken of Rebecca Kitteridge in the past, Peter, in a more controversial sense. This time it's been applauded around the traps. Now, she was the person that the Prime Minister went to and sought her to investigate whether or not the GCSB, that's our the Government Communications Security Bureau, whether or not it had been surveilling people illegally. Now, she did a very robust report, and she found, yes, it had been. 88 people had legally been under surveillance by spy agencies. Now, her report was leaked and all of that, and that's when we spoke about it, Peter, and it led to the government under John Key deciding, okay, all the areas where she's identified, they're acting illegally, we will make it legal, and they put legislation through Parliament that made it lawful for it to spy on New Zealanders. And that went through the House, like we mentioned a little while ago. Now, the Labor Party and the Green Party seemed quite agreeable to Rebecca Kitteridge being made the Director of Security of the SIS here in New Zealand. It's like our equivalent to your ACO. Okay. And they say that because she has been a fantastic civil servant, one that's impartial, and they do believe that she's the kind of person they could work with if they win the election next year to reform our security agencies and to stop them basically spying on Kiwis.
There we go. And on that note, Selwyn, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your report this morning, and we'll catch you again next week.
Okay, Peter.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye. Selwyn Manny in New Zealand. Head to livenews.co.nz for more. Thanks for your company through the night. Time to go. Stay tuned. Ann Stone's got all the latest news, sport and weather next. Then Leith Forrest takes you into breakfast with Keith Conlon and Jane Riley.
If you live for the weekend, if you crave live music, tap in at tons of pubs, bars and clubs, all in one website. Liveatyourlocal.com.au is bringing back live entertainment to the suburbs and into a pub near you. Families need to have fun too. Go to liveatyourlocal.com.au, click on the kids button and see great offers like free ice cream and gifts and free birthday meals for kids. For great food, great value, great functions, great website. Find it all at liveatyourlocal.com.au. I mean, liveatyourlocal.com.au.
Every business in South Australia has a choice to make. South Australian businesses now have an opportunity to choose who manages their workers' compensation claims. Gallagher Bassett provides South Australian employers a choice to achieve better outcomes, managing costs and providing a service focused to your business needs. Before November